So I'm Megan Morikawa, Global Director of the Sustainability Office, but we also have Adriana Sanchez, who's our Responsible Seafood Strategy Director. And we're going to dive a little bit behind the scenes on this seafood strategy that we've launched this year and talk a little bit about what goes into actually making it a reality. Adriana, it's going to be a very fun conversation, and I think maybe we should start hearing a little bit about you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey before you came to Iberostar?
Sure. Well, hi. So excited to do this behind the scenes. I love to talk about seafood. Before I joined Iberostar, I actually worked for our family seafood business here in Miami. They're seafood importers called Sea Delight. And after Sea Delight, I worked for Fair Trade USA for their seafood program. And then I joined the Wave of Change team last November. So very excited to be here and talk about seafood at the Iberostar hotels.
You talk a lot about industry and industry knowledge and combining industry knowledge and NGOs. What was it like to join this side of the industry? What did you think when you heard about this opportunity at Iberostar?
Well, I was very excited. Part of my journey in the seafood industry is trying to figure out how I can create more impact on the water. Like, how do we improve fisheries globally? So, working for Iberostar, knowing that, they have this global presence, 19 countries, 120 hotels, was really a great opportunity for us to go beyond, just the regular seafood supply chains and think about tourism, responsible tourism. So that for me was very exciting. It's a little bit more challenging because we are so far removed from supply chains like producers. So in some instances, we have to work through not just our distributor, but who they're buying from, which may not necessarily be the producer itself.
At Iberostar, we have a commitment to have 100% responsibly sourced seafood by 2025, and it certainly was a journey to get to as ambitious of a goal as that. We started out with certifications because that was one of the easiest things as we were starting to learn what was needed to go into the definition of responsible. There are MSC certifications and Aquaculture Stewardship Council certifications that allowed us to have a certainty of the product from the very beginning of when it was caught all the way to the provider itself. But we found that we wanted to expand that definition even further. And so as you were saying, so we looked towards the Global Seafood Sustainability Initiative to see what were the certifications that they were benchmarking as reasonable to classify as responsible, right? So this includes the Global Gap, this includes best aquaculture practices, amongst others. And then we were also looking to the second category of rated or assessed or in an improvement project. So there's the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch rated green or yellow. There's the fisheries improvement projects and aquaculture improvement projects. And then this third category of local was a component because we said, look, we really want to be able to help the local fisheries in the places where we're operating. Many of these countries are destinations. People want to go to these locations, eat local seafood. But if we wanted to define responsible seafood as certified or in an improvement program or assessed, there were very few instances where we actually had local and responsible seafood. Because the UN SDGs have their own goals and objectives towards lifting up artisanal fisheries, ensuring that illegal and unregulated, unreported fishing is no longer a problem for these communities, we aligned with those targets to see if we could work with NGO partners to build a framework to find ways to lift up local fisheries. This is something that won't be unlocked for a while and is one of the other reasons why we're so excited to have you, Adriana, on board to talk to us about lifting up local fisheries. And that's kind of that third component that we're looking forward to exploring more and more as we progress on our journey to 100% responsible consumption of seafood. Adriana, can you tell us a little bit on why local was so important for Iberostar?
As Iberostar is a family owned and operated business, working locally, it's very important too, right? We know that fisheries and fishermen and communities depend on this resource. So it's moving beyond saying we're not going to purchase this because then there's a sort of unintended consequences to community level if you don't source locally. But how can we leverage, our purchasing power to help fisheries locally in the geographies where we operate to improve, right? Make better decisions? Or is it, helping with changing gears, being more selective in how they fish? Is it using our presence to help push policy, or work with a local NGO that is trying to move the needle and have a little bit more um, leverage in policy making and decision making there? So I think it's really important, because of our values, and because we know how important this resource is for the local fishery. So I think it's really great that we are looking at how we can use our presence to help these communities also. And it benefits our clients too, because they get to experience amazing fresh seafood products, and that's part of also the experience at our hotels.
Part of what we worked on in our roadmap for how we will get to 100% responsible sourcing of seafood in 2025 was defining all of the sub targets that we would need in order to get there, right? So that we weren't in year 2024 not knowing how much sustainable seafood we were actually already consuming. Can you tell me a little bit about not only the targets that we set year by year for our sourcing goals, but also what else we needed to focus on in order to get there?
We need to figure out, like, not only what we're buying, but also what species they are and what is the gear, and also identify primary processors, because we, to avoid some of the confusion, right? There's like, for example, salmon may be caught in Alaska, but it's processed in China, and then we will get data that says that this is Chinese salmon. We may not necessarily like be that way. So it was very important to understand where it was caught, where it was processed, and how it ended up on our hotels.
One of the biggest journeys for us has been learning the importance of, but also the challenges associated with traceability. Can you tell us a really quick, if you had to explain this to your kids, to a third grader, what is traceability?
Well, traceability in essence, it's knowing where your seafood or any product comes from. In the case of our industry, like seafood industry, we have traceability for food safety, right? So if there's a recall of a specific product, we know exactly where it came from. But traceability, like true traceability and transparency, takes you back to that boat, to that farm, to that person that caught that fish. And there are challenges with that, in terms of, we traditionally collect data in paper. Like, these are registries that are done in paper. So how do you digitize this information so it can be quickly transferred across the supply chain? And that's, I think, the kind of nitty gritty. We can say, oh, this product comes from producer A, but we may not necessarily know that it came from fisherman B on vessel number, XXX, and with a country flag of Vietnam or Taiwan, or whatever.
When we launched our roadmap for seafood, we, as part of that, said that we wanted to be able to source 45% of our seafood from responsible sources in the first year of launching the roadmap. It was an ambitious goal to start with, but then in the midst of all of that, the pandemic has shaken up supply chains, closed all of our operations for the safety of the places where we're operating and for our employees. And we were tasked amidst all of that to say, well, do we continue with these goals? How do we actually work towards sourcing 45% of our seafood from responsible sources, even given this context? Do you want to tell us a little bit about how it is that we have started on that journey, and more or less where it is we're standing right now?
Okay, so when we started, we declared a goal, we started collecting data, we said this is possible because the 45% was based on very high volume products that we know are certified or come from fisheries that have been rated, or fishery improvement projects. So as we started communicating these goals to our suppliers and start collecting data, the pandemic hit. So that really disrupted a lot of our operations, and affected the industry as a whole. So what we did was use this opportunity to say, how do we build back better, right? And start purging or thinking about products that may not necessarily be important for our menus, and then work with our providers to understand what do they have in stock, because we were mindful of some of the challenges they were also facing. And in that discovery or conversation, we realized that a lot of the products they already had met our definition of responsible, but they didn't know. So that was a little learning curve, working with them to understand what kind of data we need to be collecting, what kind of products we were looking for. And what we have seen is that once you pass the hurdle of that learning curve and start getting information, we realize that, okay, we're slowly reaching our goals. And we have realized, working with the purchasing team, that every week we have new references that we realize that are responsible, or that our own distributors are saying, hey, I'm going to look for this product from another supplier because I know they have it certified. So it's been this really kind of conversation and working closely with them to understand not only our commitment, what they have in stock that we can help them move, and also looking into the future how they can source better, which is so important here, right? Like, how do they also change their sourcing policies or sort the way they buy products, to be able to meet our commitments?
Can you walk me through an example of how we discovered a product that we were already sourcing was responsible per the first and second definitions only, right? That it was just certified, rated by Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch, or in an improvement program. We're just talking about those categories. Can you tell me an example of how we discovered that these products were responsible just by collecting better data?
Yeah, well, that is like the magic of data, right? So I have a few examples, but I'll focus on the red shrimp from Argentina. I know, because of being in the industry long enough, that there's a fishery improvement project in Argentina for the inshore and offshore red shrimp. So working and collecting data, I started realizing that the langostinos, by the species and the FAO and the country of origin, were from Argentina. Once they gave us the processor name, it was easy to link them to the FIP as a FIP participant. So that helped us say, hey, you're buying from somebody that is participating in the FIP. Also for the white leg shrimp, they call it Vaname shrimp. I started noticing that it was aquaculture. It was farmed in countries like Ecuador or Vietnam, and I would start asking questions like, "Look, I know that these the majority of these farms are certified either by BAP or ASC. So can you please go and check if they have a certification?" So when they ask the questions, it turns out that they did have certifications, or they will give us a processor name, and I was able to find the processor name in the websites and kind of link them to, and then just ask them to send the certificate numbers. So that was a way of, like, a little investigative detective work. But it's the beauty of collecting this data and how it serves our purposes, right? There's going to be a second wave of fine-tuning the details of our data and traceability, but right now, given the current circumstances with COVID-19 and the effect that it has in the industry, I'm very excited and pleased that we're able to even collect this data and get us, a little bit closer to our goal for this year.
I'm always just completely amazed by your database of all of the fisheries in the world which are in a FIP or responsible, and your ability to be as efficient as possible in finding that one piece of information that gets you to responsible. How would other companies do something like this?
Well, that is a really great question. So there are different technology providers, that are working with companies to improve traceability in terms of, like Trace Register. They have a setup where the producers have to input the data, and that gets transferred to the importer, and then it gets pushed to the retailer. Blockchain would also be another technology being used. For smaller scale companies, there's websites like Fish Choice, for example, that you can go in and create an account and log in how you source your products, and then they run it through their database and tells you, hey, this is from yellow or green, or if it's certified, you can put that information there. But it's still detective work in many areas. You can work with other NGOs and they will facilitate working some of this data collection, but I find it that because of the relationships between producers, like the commercial relationship between producers and buyers and even importers and exporters, sometimes external agents to collect data, it's a little bit foreign. So it takes them a little bit more work and traction to get the information, as opposed to having somebody internally that is learning how the procurement process works, that is having direct access to the supply chain to be able to move it a little bit faster.
For us too, it's been one of the most incredible collaborations. I say collaboration, we're all in the same Iberostar family, between our purchasing and procurement teams. Wow, the amount of when you combine two different kinds of expertise, right? Their relationships with suppliers, their understanding of how to make sure that everyone's interests are met, and collecting all of this new data, making sure the quality standards are there, the price standards are there, and then your collaboration with them to bring in the sustainability component.
We are not operating as traditional seafood industry people do. Like, for example, in the seafood industry, you have dedicated buyers, right? All they do is buy seafood. Whatever species it is, whatever their specialty is, it's all seafood. Our team buys seafood and other commodities. So that's very interesting. And it has its own challenges also. But like kudos, for our team to, negotiate seafood and then also negotiate textiles and meat and produce. So it's very unique the way that, as going back to the original question that you said, like how different it is for me, being in the tourism sector, is like it's a very unique way of operating, right? That it's not just like seafood 100%. There's all these moving pieces, and having to incorporate sustainability on top of that has its challenges, has rewards, and also it's very exciting.
Our providers have also been critical in this journey. Can you tell me a little bit about uh, the relationship that we have with our providers, and some of the ways that you and I both have been incredibly surprised at how enthused and on top of this movement that they were as well. Can you tell me a little bit about our providers' role in all of this?
Yeah, so it has been really great to work with, providers like all over the world, like our distributors across, different countries. They I think there's again the learning curve, right? We went, and it happened in the movement. We went from asking or selling just dead fish to selling dead fish with a story or with a sustainability. So they had to learn with us in the process. And now that they understand why we're doing what we're doing, they're so excited to support us and continue looking for new products or new sources. And as more fisheries become certified and more farms become certified, they have more access to different products. So that really has helped us, move away from like, oh, sustainability is expensive, to, oh, sustainability doesn't have to be expensive. We just need to like see what's out there. There's a whole world, beyond what they have known. And it has been a really great collaboration of them learning about what we're doing it, and also letting them know, hey, how about this farm, or how about this product, or have you heard about X, or it's really being exciting. So I think that that's critical that we have their support in this process.
If you had to give advice to suppliers who are interested in sourcing more sustainable or responsible seafood, what would you tell them? Where should they start?
Where should they start? Oh man. Well, I have a lot of advice for that. So I would first, define sustainability in a way that it makes sense for their company. Their company size, their customer. You don't want to go in and get full chain of custody certified and MSC or whatever, certification, if your customer is not there yet, right? Like they may not necessarily need that. So they might be looking for something else. So you have to be kind of smart about the use of your resources to make sure that you get the most return of investment. So I would start with like, how do you define sustainability for your company, and what does your customer want? sometimes the customer is not interested, but if this is important for you and your values, then you need to start also with teaching your customer about what sustainability is and why is it important as a value added to your product. And then the second advice I would be like, get knowledgeable, right? Like there's many organizations that are working in different spaces that are willing to speak to industry without, having to necessarily partner. So there's many opportunities for engagement, whether it's like workshops or supplier roundtables, and then, ask also, who they're buying from. Maybe they're certified because they're selling to somebody else in another country that is asking for the certifications. So that would be like the easiest thing, right? Like, hey, are you certified? And that will be the low hanging fruit. But if they're not certified, then talk about that with them. Like, what does that mean? Who are your exports? I think collective action really helps drive change.
What does it feel like to be a client at Iberostar? What does it feel like to be a guest at Iberostar and go into this journey for responsible seafood? What are some of the ways that our clients are currently experiencing responsible seafood?
Well, as of right now, I know that in some of our restaurants where we have the menus, they can choose. We have the MSC and ASC certifications, chain of custody, so they are able to enjoy specific certified products on these restaurants that have the menu with their logo. So that's one of the ways that they know this product is certified. We're also moving to new ways of communicate this to our customers, either through responsible seafood choice options, across the different restaurants, not just the ones that are certified chain of custody. And I think telling the story, right? Working with our marketing and brand teams to tell the story in our websites and our app. Also work with our staff, the people that are interfacing day to day with our clients, that could, that receive this education, this training, and also can communicate what we're doing for responsible seafood with them. So, our chefs, our staff in the cocina and kitchen. And I think that's a really good opportunity for us to continue having this conversation. Also having that as an opportunity to have conversations around it, and then give advice on how they can source more responsibly in their own homes as well.
I think you brought up a really great point, which is that in order for us to effectively communicate to our clients, our teams, our marketing, our waiters, our reservations desks need to understand what responsible seafood also means too. This is one of the reasons why one of our first steps was to serve only MSC and ASC certified seafood in our headquarters, right? So that all of our employees at headquarters understood what responsible mean, and we're the first ones to act accordingly and adopt these sorts of practices as well. It's really great to be working on this one piece of the gastronomic experience at Iberostar amongst this umbrella of our honest food movement, where our chefs and our teams are working on not only sourcing. We talked about our procurement team's ability to really balance a lot of sustainability goals and a lot of social goals across the products that we're sourcing. Source great products that are low, that are fresh and grown locally at kilometer zero, if that is possible in some of the places that we're working. But then also to communicate that to our clients in a way that they know what they're experiencing, and that they're coming on vacation and they can feel good with the food that they're also eating too. So it's great to have this component just be one piece of this overarching honest food that you can really experience and feel when you're at the buffets or in the restaurants of Iberostar. Adriana, if there was any advice that you could give to just anyone, an average citizen, on how they could also choose more responsible seafood, what advice would you give them?
I could say, if you go to a restaurant, ask your server, where does the seafood come from, right? So that will be one step. If you go to the fish market, or if you go to your local supermarket, ask the same question. Where does the seafood come from? Is it responsible? Is it sustainable? If you want to take a step further, then I will go into their websites and check out their sustainable seafood commitments and see, hey, what are they doing to make sure that when I go to my local retail store, that they're taking some measures or even participating in trying to improve the seafood sustainability. Um, so that's kind of what I would start. There's apps like Seafood Watch has a really great app that you can put the seafood and it will tell you the recommendations if it's yellow or green. But I think just kind of asking, the act of asking, sometimes the servers don't know, but then that sort of like lifts a little light bulb. Oh, let me ask the chef. And maybe the chef doesn't know. But if enough people ask, then it kind of triggers, a chain reaction of like, oh, maybe we should know this answer, right? So we don't look like completely ignorant in the restaurants, and then maybe it's an oh my god, a value added to their product, to their brand. So I think just asking the question, where's my seafood coming from? Is it sustainable? Is it certified? Is it responsible? In addition to, is it local? Which that's another can of worms, because not necessarily local means responsible, but that leads also to a little bit more opportunity for education. Is this product supposed to be in season? Right? They're saying it's fresh, but is there a season? Is it really seasonally available? Do I know if my country is really regulating this species properly? So it takes a little bit of detective work, but it's worth it. I think it really shows that if we care enough about what we're putting into our body, like how we consume seafood, it leads change, with numbers.
I think for me personally, in my own journey, and as I've been thinking a lot about how to reduce my own impact on eating a little bit less red meat, thinking about sustainably sourced protein from the ocean, one of the easiest ways to do that is once I have this knowledge, you can look for those logos on the packaging and check things like GSSI to see if that logo matches what they've benchmarked as responsible, because there's lots of logos that come up on those packaging. But this is advice actually that you, I think, had given me in the past, that frozen is actually a really great option because there's a lot of responsibly sourced frozen seafood in a lot of grocery stores, and it maybe takes away a little bit of the fear of needing to use these products really quickly when you're at home. And so it's a great way to think about being more responsible in your seafood consumption at home as well.
I think that it's important that we continue to kind of keep up with the changes and understand that, there's so many different opportunities also. Any farms too, like there's this whole like wild versus farm raised, but we know that not all farms are created equal. And there's a lot of great work being done in aquaculture to improve the products, to make sure that they're safe, that they're nutritious, and that they're sustainable, right? That it's not um, causing a negative impact on their surrounding areas and the environment. So I think it's really important that as consumers, we feel empowered by education and understanding that, seafood is not just really great as a diet protein, for our health, but also it's really great for the environment because it has this opportunity to offset some of climate change and carbon footprints, and it's better. It's good for people, good for the planet.